Welcome back. It's been a minute. Hope that pass off went well for you. Welcome to Standard 2. Standard 2 is the anatomy of the respiratory system. You will need to be able to go from all the way from the frontal sinus the nose and the nasal cavity, all the way down through all the parts of the respiratory system, all the way down into singular alveoli. That's a really important concept for you to understand, as important as probably knowing your heart and all the areas of your heart and how blood flows through the heart. And it'll probably take you just as long to get that down. So I'm going to split this into two small videos. We're going to go through the upper respiratory tract and then do the lower respiratory tract so you can study those individually, pass them off individually, and then we'll move on from there. So the very first part that we need to know about is the nose and mouth. So your nose and mouth are just where air comes into your body. That's really simple, but that involves to the warming, moisturizing, and filtering of air. That's why you should be breathing through your nose, because you have all of the filters and wonderful things up here to make sure that the air is of the highest quality as it goes down into your lungs. Things that are bad for your lungs, like inhaling smoke, bypass all of those built-in filters and are really, really rough on your lungs and the delicate structures down there. Nose and mouth is also, we talked about this on the last video, where smelling occurs. Your olfactory receptors are there, so those allow you to sense smell. And it's also a resonating chamber for speech. If you ever have damage, some of you may know, if you have damage up into your nose or change the shape of your nose significantly, it actually changes the way your voice sounds, because the way you resonate your sound can change depending on how big the chamber is. This is why you sound weird when you're cold, or when you have a cough, or if you have a stuffy nose. It changes the shape and volume of that resonating chamber and changes how you sound. There's the nose and the nasal cavity. This shouldn't be anything. The one thing that really does surprise people is how large the nasal cavity is. It really opens up once you come through the nostril into a pretty significant sized opening and cavity inside of your body. After you go through the nose, you go down into the pharynx. The pharynx is this really unique, you call it your throat, but it's actually a really unique tube that determines things come in two different ways and can go out two different ways and come back two different ways and go back out two different ways. So it's a really interesting passageway of kind of like almost a stoplight in your respiratory and your digestive system. It's a shared structure between the two. So air and food pass through it. And again, another resonating chamber for speech. This is, if you're in choir or anything like that, this is when you get your head voice. You can change the shape of your pharynx to send sound in different directions as it travels out and out towards everyone you're singing at or yelling at or whatever, making sounds towards. We'll get to some specifics of the pharynx in a little bit, but just realize that it's the area that you would call your throat, but it goes all the way from the back of your nose to the back of your mouth and down to just above your larynx and esophagus in this area. Okay. All right, so we went nose, mouth, then to the pharynx, and now we're on to the larynx. This is the last part of the upper respiratory tract. This is kind of the breaking point. This is also known as your voice box. You can feel it right here. It's where you make your vocal cords from. We'll break this down in a lot of detail in a video coming up, but basically it's just a short passageway between the pharynx and the trachea, and it allows for there to be a separation between food going down to your esophagus and air going down to your trachea, which sounds really simple, but when you choke, you screwed that up. So it's not quite as simple as you think. And it's a really, really important thing to understand. Okay, so get those memorized, and I'll see you next time for the second half. Make sure you do your pass off, and again, be studying your Quizlet.